The studio was alive with tension before the show even went live. Cameras rolled, the crew gave final cues, and the buzzing of anticipation filled the air. It was the kind of political face-off that networks dream of. Rudy Giuliani, once hailed as a national hero, now a controversial figure with numerous legal entanglements, facing off against Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett, a bold, quick-witted voice from the progressive wing of the Democratic Party. The audience leaned forward in their seats, knowing they were about to witness sparks. As the host introduced the segment, Giuliani smiled confidently, hands folded neatly on the table in front of him. Crockett sat across from him, expression cool and composed, her posture unapologetically assertive. The topic was crime, justice reform, and political accountability. Giuliani wasted no time. "Congresswoman," he began, his tone tinged with paternalistic authority, "your rhetoric might stir up Twitter, but out here in the real world, people are suffering. Cities are spiraling into crime, law enforcement is under siege, and it's all under your party's watch." Crockett's response was swift, but measured. "Rudy, let's not pretend this is about safety. This is about control. And when you say, under siege, you really mean you're not in control of the narrative anymore. People aren't buying the fearmongering like they used to." Giuliani leaned in. "That's a clever deflection, but I've worked with real numbers. Crime is up. Morale in police departments is down. That's not a narrative, it's reality." Crockett's eyes didn't flinch. "And whose reality is that? Because in my community, we've seen decades of over-policing and under-protection. We've seen people criminalized for being poor, while white-collar criminals walk free after committing fraud on a national scale. Let's talk about that reality." The audience murmured, sensing the tide shifting. Giuliani shook his head. "You and your colleagues constantly vilify police, praise protests that turn violent, and then blame everyone else when it all falls apart. It's irresponsible." Crockett tilted her head, unfazed. "What's irresponsible is pretending protests come out of nowhere. They come from people being ignored, hurt, and treated as expendable. And no, we're not vilifying the police, we're demanding better from a system that has shown it can be deadly when it fails." The tension grew heavier. Giuliani's face tightened. "So what exactly have you done to improve anything?" he challenged. "It's easy to throw stones when you're not the one building anything." "I've authored legislation for housing equity, pushed bills for health access, and fought tooth and nail for environmental justice," Crockett fired back. "That may not be glamorous to you, but it's saving lives. And while we're talking about building, let's talk about what you've built, a legacy built on exploiting fear, followed by scandal after scandal." The host attempted to interject, but neither Giuliani nor Crockett slowed down. "You know, Jasmine," Giuliani said, trying to steady his voice, "you seem more interested in gaining followers than crafting policy." Crockett chuckled. "And you seem more interested in maintaining your reputation than facing the consequences of your actions. Let me be crystal clear, I didn't come here to get followers. I came here because people are tired of the same old voices telling them to wait their turn while justice is delayed for generations." Giuliani raised an eyebrow, clearly rattled. "You're using big words to distract from small results." Then Crockett delivered the line that would echo across newsrooms and social media feeds for days. "Rudy, it's not that we want likes, it's that we're finally being heard. And maybe the problem isn't us talking louder, maybe it's that your time for listening ended 20 years ago." There was a beat of stunned silence. The live audience didn't cheer, didn't gasp, they just absorbed it, eyes locked on the two figures at the center of the storm. Giuliani's lips parted slightly, as if to form a reply, but no words came out. He sat back in his chair, momentarily silenced, caught in the gravity of her statement. Crockett remained composed, giving no victory grin, no gesture of triumph. She just looked at him, calmly and firmly, the way a leader looks at the past before moving forward. It wasn't just a political moment, it was a generational reckoning, and Giuliani had just felt the full weight of it. Backstage during the commercial break, the air was thick with unspoken words. Rudy Giuliani sat rigid in his chair, clearly stewing over the exchange that had just unfolded. He tugged at his collar, eyes darting toward the floor as makeup artists fluttered around him. Meanwhile, Jasmine Crockett sat relaxed in her seat, legs crossed, calmly scrolling through her phone as tweets, news headlines, and live reactions poured in. Her name was already trending, and the phrase, "Your time for listening ended 20 years ago," had ignited the internet. As the stage manager counted down, 3, 2, 1, the show returned from commercial. The host, visibly aware of the electricity in the room, attempted to ease the tension. Before the break, we had a very passionate exchange. Let's take this opportunity to shift the focus toward solutions. Congresswoman Crockett, what's your vision for building bridges in this divided political climate? Without hesitation, Crockett leaned in, her voice calm but resolute. We start by telling the truth. There's no bridge without a foundation. We can't unify around delusion. We can't pretend that what's broken will fix itself. Accountability doesn't divide us, denial does. The host nodded, intrigued. So how do we move forward? We invest in people, she continued. We stop treating poverty as a crime. We stop using fear to win elections. We fund schools more than we fund prisons. And we stop pretending that calls for justice are an attack, they're a plea for dignity. Before the host could respond, Giuliani cut in. That sounds nice, Congresswoman, but what you just said is more rhetoric. You say, invest in people, but what you support are policies that punish businesses, burden taxpayers, and weaken law enforcement. Crockett didn't blink. No, Rudy, what we're doing is challenging power structures that have gone unchecked for too long. You call it punishment, I call it fairness. I'm not here to coddle billionaires who exploit loopholes or defend a justice system that's harsher on a kid with weed than a CEO with offshore accounts. Giuliani bristled. I work to clean up one of the toughest cities in America. You don't know what it means to make hard choices. She locked eyes with him. And I work every day to clean up the damage left behind by decades of policies that prioritized punishment over prevention. Hard choices. Try explaining to a mother why her child can't afford insulin, or why her son sits in jail for a nonviolent offense while white-collar criminals play golf. That's the kind of hard choices we face every day. The audience was fully engaged now, nodding, murmuring. The energy had shifted again, this time unmistakably in Crockett's favor. The host turned to Giuliani. Mr. Giuliani, your response? He paused. He had expected a debate, but not this. Not a challenger so articulate, so unflinching. He was used to dominating the room with bravado, but Crockett hadn't taken the bait. She hadn't yelled, hadn't lost her composure, she'd simply outmaneuvered him with facts, lived experience, and clarity. I think, he said slowly, you've made your point. Crockett nodded politely. Thank you. But the moment wasn't over yet. I just hope, Giuliani added, trying to recover ground, that your generation realizes slogans don't govern. When the cameras are off, you still need results. Crockett smiled, gently. You're right, slogans don't govern, but neither does nostalgia. We're not asking to erase the past, we're just refusing to be chained to it. The silence that followed wasn't empty, it was powerful. It wasn't the silence of defeat or awkwardness. It was the quiet of a room that knew something had shifted. That a page had turned. As the segment wrapped up, the host thanked both guests, but it was clear which voice had resonated more deeply. Giuliani gave a tight nod and exited briskly, avoiding post-show interviews. Crockett, on the other hand, was swarmed backstage by reporters, aides, and producers, all eager to hear more from the woman who had just flipped the script on one of the most seasoned political figures in modern American history. By the time the sun rose the next morning, Crockett's clips had been played across every major network. Hashtags trended. Op-eds praised her poise, her sharpness, her refusal to be boxed in by old rules. Rudy Giuliani came into that studio expecting to lecture. Instead, he left having learned something. The future doesn't wait for permission to speak. It shows up, speaks clearly, and leaves even the loudest voices speechless.